Is yoga just an exercise? And this goes to Dr. Nick Sutton.
Oh, all right. No. I mean, you're talking there about physical exercise, I presume. In fact, the physical side of yoga is a later development in the long history of yoga. If we look back to the earliest texts, which we find in the Mahabharata, in Bhagavad Gita, and of course Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, that it's very much a yoga of the mind. It's about focusing the mind with intensity and withdrawing the mind from its external lines of perception so that it can be directed inwards as a sort of inward exploration. And what we find in the Mahabharata particularly is that there's a passage first which gives philosophical truths about the spiritual nature of the true self, Purush, from the Sankhya perspective in general, the perspective of Sankhya philosophy. And then the speaker will say, I've given you the Sankhya, now I will give you the yoga. And what he means is, I've given you the theoretical basis, and now I will outline the forms of practice by which you can realize experientially the truths I've taught you from a theoretical perspective. Later on in the development of the history of yoga, much more in the way of physical techniques are added on to Patanjali's original revelation, although Patanjali wasn't the first. And then the physical dimensions of yoga become increasingly significant, but the principal aim of spiritual realization is sustained right throughout the historical tradition of yoga, and it's very much present there in Gita, Mahabharata, and in Yoga Sutras.
I strongly believe, and I'm totally agree with Nicholas. So it's not a just exercise; it is more than that. And basically, when we focus on the tradition of our yoga system, so yoga is part of the philosophy, Indian philosophy. And when we talk yoga as a philosophy, then suddenly our mind focus. Philosophy, it's mean darshan, and whatever in which way we want to see the world, see the universe, that way is philosophy basically. So yoga is the philosophy, and when we call yoga is philosophy, then suddenly it becomes the way of life. So it is not a postures, is just a limb, just a part. But Indian philosophy is a vast, it's an ocean. So whenever you want to enter in this ocean, you will go deeper and deeper and deeper. But when we explore the philosophy, and when we have a look on the entire system of the philosophy, there are a lot of streams and paths of the yoga, and the Raj Yoga, Hatha Yoga, and the Karma Yoga. There are a lot of systems and paths of the yoga, but Hatha Yoga and Raj Yoga and Karma Yoga, Samatva Yoga, these are the main Bhakti Yoga. These are the main streams of the yoga. So we can say yoga is not only the exercise; it is more than that, and it's a way of life.
So this is a very interesting question and very relevant, because when I teach yoga and, I have new yogis and they have heard of Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, they ask also, like I ask them, okay, so how many postures do you think are there in Yoga Sutra? And they're like, maybe hundreds, maybe thousands. And when I tell them it's zero, there are no postures listed, because I think, the way yoga has been portrayed in the mainstream, the way it came in the mainstream, it just got associated with being on the mat, these kind of postures, down dog, up dog. But if you see, actually, in the philosophy of yoga, the earliest texts, they don't even mention the name of postures. So the only thing that Yoga Sutra, the way they define posture is Thiram Sukham Asanam. And they don't go on to describe, take a breath here, take your vinyasa, take your chaturanga. But this is the way that most of the people think, or they imagine that this is how the sage would have written them. But it's not like that. And it is good that it is not like that, because if you understand the philosophy, the theory, I think the postures, they just start making more sense and you are able to do them better. And that's why, again, when I teach yoga, I talk extensively about yamas and niyamas, because only then we can go to the third limb, which is asana.
First of all, you have to look at what is yoga. Yeah. So the Sanskrit text, they will say the original word is yog, which means the union. Union of body, mind, and spirit. Yeah. But also, I would say in Patanjali it says yoga karmashu koshalam. So it also means that yoga. It means also skill to live your life, to live your day-to-day life as well. Yeah, maintaining your emotions, maintaining your love throughout your life. You see that? So you are in a state of equilibrium, in a state of equanimity. Yeah, the 8 limbs of yoga are there. Yes, and of that, the number third one is the asanas. This is what a lot of the people focus on, is the postures. Yeah, that is where the exercise comes in. But then you have the yamas and the niyamas, social ethics, personal ethics, and from there you move on to the pranayamas, the breathing exercises. Yeah, pratyahara, the withdrawal, and then you go into the dhyana. Yeah, so dhyan, actually the word dhyan means concentration, and when you say dhyana, na means not concentration. So as you go further deeper into the aspect of yoga, I'm in agreement with everybody what we just said. It's not just exercise, it's a bigger picture. Yeah, in simple terms, in a very simple layman's term, it's going from unhappiness to happiness and maintaining that happiness. Yeah, so you're established in the self.
So no, just it's not just an exercise. Just as Rajji mentioned, the epistemology of the word, going back to the Sanskrit root of yuja, being kind of union, or even sort of modern day English words like joinery or junction, sort of connecting back to your source, as opposed to a simple identified with the body and performing asanas. And I guess similar to as Dr. Sutton mentioned in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, I think the second sort of sloka says yoga chitta vritti nirodha, where you're almost kind of drawing inwards and turning internally, not just sort of in a physical sense, but even moving up the sheaths, whether it's through your pranas, through your manamaya kosha, vijnanamaya kosha, and ultimately into your anandamaya kosha. And then the physical element, yes, it's an exercise because there are secondary or tertiary benefits of sort of health and fitness. However, it's almost kind of bypassing the sort of vitality of the body. You know, it's almost an embracement of death itself and the immortality of the soul, and that's expressed through different types of yogas, whether it's a Kriya Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, or in the Mahabharata or in the Bhagavad Gita, they mentioned the sort of Bhakti Yoga, Karma Yoga, Dharma Yoga, and so forth. So sort of in that, sort of to summarize, yoga is a whole spectrum of things, ultimately one to connect with oneself in the higher sense. And in the sort of the modern Western environment, yes, it's sort of been perceived commonly by many as just an exercise, but it's rather than sort of a workout, I'd say it's more of a work-in.
Yoga is not simply an exercise form, as is commonly misunderstood. I think in modern times, and especially in the West, we tend to focus on the physical postures, which fall under Hatha Yoga. But even Hatha Yoga is not simply exercise. So understanding the mechanics of the body, creating a certain atmosphere, and using body postures to really drive your energy in specific directions is what the aim of Hatha Yoga or Yoga Asanas are about. So the word asana literally means a posture. And that kind of posture, which allows you to reach your higher nature, is considered a yogasana. But ultimately, the word yoga, as we've heard, it means union. And really, it means just to unite with that dimension of you, which is the source of your creation. So just as everyone has said, you know, there's so many different parts of yoga as well. There's Bhakti Yoga, Karma Yoga, Kriya Yoga, and so on. So asana is just a small part.